I'm Father Bryan Brooks, the pastor of the Church of St. Benedict in Broken, Oklahoma, and today I'm going to give a review of the 1966 film A Man for All Seasons. It was an extremely popular film at the time, won a whole slew of awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor of the Academy Awards, and a whole slew of other awards out of England, since it's a British-made film. It is rightly seen as one of the best films ever made, particularly in terms of faith. That includes film critics from the Vatican. So, and also, full disclosure, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. In fact, I can quote whole passages of the dialogue in an exceedingly obnoxious way, whether I'm asked to do so or not. And also, the film is about St. Thomas More, who is my confirmation patron saint. So again, full disclosure, all the cards on the table face up. Now, Paul Scofield, the English actor, plays the lead as St. Thomas More. Thomas More was a 16th century English layman. He was a husband, father, was an attorney, a judge, and a statesman. And Scofield also played this role on stage. This originally was a stage play before it was made into a film. Interesting, the playwright, and then later who wrote the screenplay, was an Englishman named Robert Bolt. He was agnostic, yet he would also write not only this screenplay, but also 20 years later the screenplay for the movie The Mission. Now, in Bolt's screenplays for both The Man for All Seasons and for The Mission, there's a focus on individuals who remain true to the principles, their core values, and also true to their faith under all circumstances. And he sees Moore as the ultimate man of a rightly formed conscience, truly a man for all seasons. Now, the film tells the true story, again, of Thomas More, who was also the Lord Chancellor of England, like the king's right-hand man. And that king is Henry VIII. Who's also his close friend. Now, what the drama that drives the story is that Henry is going to break with the Catholic Church over the issue of he wants to divorce his first wife, Catherine, to marry his mistress, Anne Boleyn. Now, Anne Boleyn would be the second of Henry's 6 wives, and she will also be the first wife in which he does not divorce, but rather has her executed. She's also, by the way, if you're into English royalty and lineage, she was the mother of Queen Elizabeth I. Henry demands that people in England, particularly the most important ones in the church and in civil government, sign an oath of loyalty, stating that Henry is the rightful head of the Church of England instead of the Pope. And More refuses to do so. He would be eventually arrested, imprisoned, convicted of treason on perjured testimony, and executed in the summer of 1535. His memorial in the Catholic Church is celebrated on June the 22nd. He shares that with St. John Fisher, who is an English bishop, who also, like More, refused to sign the oath, recognizing that Henry was the head of the church. What to look for in A Man for All Seasons? Themes of integrity, honesty, the rule of law, faith and reason, those core values in which Thomas More will not compromise on. And also it poses the question, particularly to Christians, about what is the response to the pressure to betray our most deeply held beliefs. And now, one thing about More, he doesn't go looking for trouble. He doesn't stand up and make this impassioned speech opposing the king. Rather, he hopes that his silence, by refusing to take the oath and not telling anybody why, that under the law will keep him safe. He's just to be left alone. And sometimes that is the right course of action for Christians in such a situation. However, there's a vindictiveness that is the response of the king and those who are under his authority. And More stands his ground, and he relies on the law to protect him. There's an exchange that More has with his future son-in-law about the rights to all to justice under the law. Now, some of the relationships that are played out in this to look for, you see how this scene is portrayed. Moore's relationship with his daughter Margaret, who's played by the actress Susan York. Moore actually had 4 children historically, but in the film they focus just on the one, Margaret. And he tells her about what it means to take an oath. And Moore says, when a man takes his oath, he's holding his entire life in his hands, like he's holding water cupped in his hands. You spread your hand out and the water drains away. The same thing if you take an oath, but you're not going to keep it, or you take an oath and you're not sincere about it. And he says, to do that, you lose yourself in that way. Also, pay attention to the relationship that Thomas More has with King Henry. And Henry is played by the English actor Robert Shaw. If you're a fan of James Bond films that Robert Shaw was in From Russia with Love, he was the assassin sent by Spectre to get rid of Bond on the train, the Orient Express. And also, a little bit later in his career, Robert Shaw would be in the movie Jaws. He plays Quint, the fisherman who's obsessed with the shark. He's the one that's told, you're going to need a bigger boat when the shark finally shows up. Now, the way that he plays Henry, he's not in it very long, but he plays it quite well, in that it's all about power. And Henry is a power player. And he knows how easy it's going to be to mold people to his will. He says there are those who follow him as king because he wears the crown. Whoever wears the crown, they're going to follow. Others follow him because he has power. They're like fish after a shark. That they're following the way of a shark, whatever they can get. And also because they want to share in that power. This is why Henry is desperate to have More's approval, his sincere approval of what Henry's wanting to do. Because he knows that More is a man of integrity, a man of character, that More is not going to do it out of a desire for power to please the king, but because More actually thinks that it's right. He also knows by More's refusal to sign the oath could be seen as a sign of weakness on the part of the king. And kings in that time and place did not dare to show weakness. We're not talking about the monarchy of England it is today, about Harry and Mark and Meghan or all these other, all that. In the 1500s in England, the king was powerful. The king did rule the government. The king had the power of life and death itself. Another character that's in the story is that of Cromwell, played by Leo McKern. He's one of those that will follow Henry because he has power. And they want to share in that power, and it doesn't matter how ruthless they have to be to carry out the king's order, that's what they're going to do. So he personifies that kind of relationship to worldly power. Now, there's another character in the story that's quite important, the character of Richard Rich, played by a very young John Hurt, who was big very early in his acting career. Now, if you're a fan of science fiction movies, John Hurt is later in the movie Alien, and he's the guy that the creature comes out of the stomach. And so, but that was much later in his career. Now, Richard Rich is very much the opposite of Thomas More. Rich is ambitious. He lacks character. He's easily tempted. He's low in trust. He's low in integrity. And More has all of these things because he knows who he is. He knows what he's willing to sacrifice everything rather than give up his integrity. Like that cup of water in his hands, he's not going to open it up to lose himself. And at the core of it, he's a man of faith. He's a pious Catholic, even a time of great corruption in the church. This is a time the Reformation is going on throughout much of Europe. Now, for Rich, and More, the contrast, More's integrity leads to a loss of material wealth, a loss of status and prestige, but also, however, at the same time, while that is decreasing, More's heroic virtue increases. With Rich, he quickly rises in wealth and status, as well as becoming increasingly corrupt. And he loses his soul in the process. And also, you see, with Rich, it doesn't start out with a big compromise. It starts out with a small compromise. A small step to his integrity, and after that the doors open. It's much easier to take bigger and bigger steps to compromise and to, in fact, to lose one's soul. Again, this is one of my favorite movies. It is, I think, truly a great film. It's fairly brief. It moves along at a very good pace. It is rated G, so you don't have to worry too much about with the young ones if you're going to watch this as a family. And you can watch it on Amazon Prime, Vudu, YouTube, Google Play, and also, if you want to be old school, a DVD. So enjoy the film, and God bless you, and keep you safe.